World War II. Whenever we think about it, it brings a shiver in the spine. Hitler had long planned an invasion of Poland, a nation to which Great Britain and France had guaranteed military support if it were attacked by Germany. On September 1, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland from the west. 2 days later, France and Britain declared war on Germany. That is the beginning of World War II. Holocaust, concentration camps, tortures, painful incidents, mental and physical abuse. What else we need to think about? This is all about the life of concentration camp once Hitler ruled Germany and made all the Jews the victim in Holocaust and concentration camps. The World War II genocide of the European Jews between 1941 and 1945 across German-occupied Europe, Nazi Germany, its collaborators systematically murdered 6 million Jews. This is also something that brings shiver in the spine. But what about the victims? What about the survivors who came after this incident of World War II? Dear students, we are dealing with the lesson The Address from Snapshot written by Margo Minco about the life she experienced once she came out of the World War II as a survivor. More about the author, Margo Minco. Actually, her name was Sarah Minco. She was born in the year 1920 on March 31st. And she was born to an Orthodox Jewish family. And very surprisingly, we can see that she turned 100 in March 2020. She is a Dutch journalist and a writer. Her real surname was Minco, as we have seen, Sarah Minco. But in your lesson, the name of the author was written as Margo Minco. Here we see that her real surname was Minco, but an official accidentally switched the first vowel, E to I. So that's why she was called as Margo Minco, not Minco. Okay. Then we see that in the war, Minco's parents, her brother and her sister all were deported. But having escaped arrest herself, she spent the rest of the war in hiding and was the family's only survivor. Minco married the poet and translator Bert Wharton, who died in 1992. She met in 1938 and with whom she hid during the war. After the war, she worked on a number of newspapers and magazines. Okay. More about the books that we need to know about is in 1957, she published her first book, The Bitter Herb, in which a nameless character goes through war experiences reminiscent of the authors. So similarly, here we see that as we have listened to the life of this Margo Minco, we see that she was also one victim of this World War II. She was the only survivor of her family, and maybe she is experiencing the very same thing that was just published in her first book, The Bitter Herb, in which a nameless character goes through the war experiences reminiscent of the authors. Okay. Then the title of her later book, An Empty House, refers not only to the demolished house that the protagonist finds after emerging from a hiding at the end of the occupation, but also to emptiness that she and her friend Yona experienced in the post-war years, to which was added the distance and sometimes even hostility displayed by many people in Netherlands towards the returnees from the concentration camps. Actually, when you go through the lesson, The Address, you see a very similar experience like what is given in the book, An Empty House. Okay? And you can just see here, as she said in the last line, we see that sometimes even hostility displayed by many people in the Netherlands towards the returnees from the concentration camp. That too worried the lives of these people very much, because so many people lost their lives, lost their family, lost their house, everything, and they have come up in the street empty-handed. Okay, that may be one of the reasons she wrote the book an empty house. And also, going through the book, The Bitter Herb, also we see the experience that she had while she was in hiding and once she came out from hiding. Okay. Then here we see that another book of collection short stories, The Other Side, was also just given a further description about Margo Minco regarding her life. Okay. So I thought of giving this much about her works because it just talks about the post-war experience that the author and many of the survivors had experienced in their life. Okay. And now just have an outlook of the lesson. Here we see that this lesson just talks about, as I told you earlier, the author Margo Minco is a victim of a World War II. Just like you have seen the Diary of an Young Girl, you know that Anne Frank also just given a beautiful description about her hiding through the book The Diary of an Young Girl that you might have studied in your last year's class. And also we see that what all tribulations in life they need to go through. Here we see that in the Diary of an Young Girl, her father just added some of the incidents that they faced during the concentration camp. But unfortunately, Anne Frank and her family could not survive apart from her father. Only Otto Frank, her father, survived, but no one else other than Otto Frank survived from this concentration camp. We see that Anne Frank died 1 month before they were rescued from this concentration camp. So the experience, as I told you, that when we go through the life of these people, just read about the books, the Holocaust experience, the concentration camp, what these people have done. Definitely, we can't even imagine and think ourselves in their situation. It's threatening. It's painful, as I told you. It's heartbreaking too. Okay? And here, as a victim of World War II, we see that through the lesson address, she is giving her personal experience after World War II. You might see that the name of the lesson is address. Address is just an address. Once she realizes that she gave up everything. Okay? The attitude of the non-Jewish people towards the Jewish people also changes after this World War II. And this is also more painful to the people who comes out of the concentration camp because they are in the street, nowhere to go, no one else to help. And one such experience is shared by this Margo Minco. And we learn about the world's cruelty towards the oppressed, and slowly learns a tough lesson in life. And here this lesson just continues. And this story goes on in different corners of the world, in the form of political abuse, religious abuse, caste, creed, nationality, everything. It goes on, still continues. The world's cruelty can be experienced as we go through the mass media, as we learn about the lives of people in different remote corners of the world. And here we see that the author realizes the truth that nothing is kept in materialistic thing and finally thought of giving up. We people are very crazy in collecting so many materialistic things in our life. We are giving importance to possessiveness in our life. We consider the non-living things as more powerful than being in a relationship, than being so humanity attitude towards each other. So here, throughout this lesson, she realizes that materialistic things has nothing to do with one's life. We keep things as a memory of someone else. To have a memory of a past life, we keep things. But here throughout the lesson, we see that she is pointing out the fact that the truth that nothing is kept in this materialistic thing. So finally she thought of giving up. That is what the outlook of the lesson is all about. And I would like to give an introduction of the lesson also. And before that, let's see the characters. Who are the characters present in the lesson, the address. Okay. The main character is the protagonist, and that protagonist is given as the name as Mrs. Yes' daughter. Okay. The daughter of Mrs. Yes. She is given the name as the daughter of Mrs. Yes. Okay. And the mother of the protagonist is Mrs. Yes, because we see that the name was not given properly. Okay, so and another character that we see here is acquaintance of Mrs. Yes, and she is one lady that is highlighting the attitude of a non-Jewish lady. Okay, as we have seen in the outlook. Okay, then another character is a girl of 15, and a girl of 15 is the daughter of Mrs. Darling. Mrs. Darling is the acquaintance of Mrs. Yes. Acquaintance means a friend who is not equal to that of an intimate friend, but an acquaintance, a person whom we consider in our life. Okay, so here we see these are the four main characters that we see in the lesson they address. Okay, the story just focus upon the life of Mrs. Yes and their daughter, and we see that it's just connected with Mrs. Darling and the daughter of Mrs. Darling. We'll just get to know about it once we get into the lesson. Okay, so now for just see the introduction of the lesson, and we see that, as I told you, that this is a story about the victim of a World War II. Even Margo Minco is one such lady who came from such a situation. So this is all about an unpleasant situation of a Jewish girl who faces when she comes back to her house after the war. You can just imagine most of the things were taken away and most of their houses were demolished, and they were just in the street, just looking after for their house, for the things that once they possess in their life. You know how you value the things in your life. Each and every single thing that you have in your life, that you collected, that you received as gift, and that you have bought, which was very expensive. You know that once you are just going somewhere, how will you feel like? You feel very sad about leaving all the things behind. Sometimes you will just make some person to have a look at or look after the things. Or you will just say to your mother, please take care of all these things for me. Okay. So here in this lesson we see that this Jewish girl faces the unpleasant situation once she comes back to her house after the war. And during the Second World War, she lost her family and her house. Already I told you that the narrator is the only survivor of this World War II in her family. Okay, so she lost her family as well as her house. In the story, we see that she comes back with an address given by her mother to take her possessions back. So that is why the title of the lesson is given as the address, because the address that she is carrying in her hand is given by her mother. The mother is no longer, she is dead, okay, but she just keeps the address which was once given long time back by her mother. And she is now back to the place where once along with her family she lived in order to take the materialistic possessions once she had. Okay, so as we just goes on deeper into the story, we'll just get to know whether she could able to get it back, how she feels like when she comes across the possessions once she had in her life. Okay, and I hope you got a good idea about what this lesson is all about and how the people in the concentration camp experienced, and also just talking about how the survivors might have felt once they came back from their concentration camp or from the Holocaust. Okay, so just think about how blessed and how peacefully we are just leading our life. The situation that we are facing is not at all a problem because we are safe and secure in our house. Okay, and thank God for all the blessings that you are enjoying in your life too. Okay, so take your textbook, all of you. Let's continue. Do you still know me? I asked. The woman looked at me searchingly. She had opened the door a chink. I came closer and stood on the step. No, I don't know. I don't know you. I am Mrs. Yes' daughter. She had her hands on the door as though she wanted to prevent it opening any further. Her face gave absolutely no sign of recognition. She kept staring at me in silence. Perhaps I was mistaken, I thought. Perhaps it isn't her. I had seen her only once, fleetingly, and that was years ago. It was most probable that I had rung the wrong bell. The woman let go off for the door and stepped to the side. She was wearing my mother's green knitted cardigan. The wooden buttons were rather pale from washing. She saw that I was looking at the cardigan and half hid herself again behind the door. But I know now that I was right. Okay. So in this address, what we see here is the protagonist. Protagonist is the narrator, who is the victim of the World War II. As I told you earlier, she comes back to her homeland, Holland. Okay. After a few years spending in hiding, and now she has got an address in her hand, which was given by her mother. Her mother, her father, all the family members got lost in the World War II. And being a Jewish, she was in the hiding for these years. And once she came out from hiding, once the world was in its peace, she thought of coming back to the place where once she enjoyed her childhood days. So once she came back, we see that the opening of the lesson, we see that she was standing in front of a door. And she was knocking at the door. And a lady was here to open the door. But what happened? She just asked, "Do you know me?" Isn't it? But we see that the response of the lady from the house was a cold response. She was just admitting, or her appearance seems to be like she doesn't know, as if it's the first time that this lady is looking at this girl or the narrator. But we see here is this is totally an unexpected arrival of the narrator towards the addressee. Okay, and the narrator was standing in front of the door. She was not given a warm welcome. You know that how people just welcome a person once they reaches to someone's house. Once someone is knocking at the door, we'll just ask, "Who are you? From where you're coming?" If that is a stranger, isn't it? But nothing like this. And this girl was asking some questions like, "Do you know me?" And as far as the response was called, the narrator was just introducing herself by telling that, "See, I am the daughter of Mrs. Yes." Okay. And in your textbook it was says that she looks at me searchingly. Searchingly means as if she wanted to know from where, is there any situation that I have found this girl, or from where did I meet this girl. Likewise, anyhow, this narrator was introducing herself by telling that I am the daughter of Mrs. Yes. Okay. So once this protagonist just introduces herself as the daughter of Mrs. Yes, there is no way for this lady to ignore the memory of Mrs. Yes. So what we see here is this lady, once she was here, we see that she doesn't even open the door fully. She was hiding behind the door. She was not even ready to open the door fully. She half opened the door. She was standing and asking this question. And here we see that she was just welcoming this narrator in a negative mood, in a cold manner, and she is not at all interested in letting the narrator inside the house. Just like what we all do once a person just comes, he'll just welcome him into the house. But the lady of the house, the addressee in which the girl reached the house, she was not ready to let the girl in, and the girl was just standing outside. The woman on the other side, she was staring at the narrator as if she can't recognize. Even though she said, "I am the daughter of Mrs. Yes," she was standing there silently. Even she was not ignoring the fact that, "I don't know Mrs. Yes." That shows that she is just remembering the name of Mrs. Yes. Okay. So at once this response of the lady from the house was not appreciable. We see that this narrator thought that maybe I have mistakenly came to this door. And at all of a sudden she thought that maybe I was wrong. The address may be wrong. And I have knocked the wrong door. The house number will be different. Just likewise. And as far as the owner of the house or the host of the house was not ready to receive this narrator thought that let me leave. And she was not ready to talk also. Okay, so she was just about to move from the house. All of a sudden, what we see here, the narrator just had a glance at the cardigan. Cardigan is the outer coat, just like a sweater. Okay, so she looked at the cardigan, and now this cardigan was so familiar to this narrator. And she easily understood that this green knitted cardigan actually belonged to her mother. Now who is wearing that? This woman of this house is wearing. Even she remembers the buttons, the color of the buttons, and she could easily recognize that yes, I am not wrong. I came to the right address. So that's why even after she said, I am the daughter of Mrs. Yes, this woman of the house was not ready to ignore, or she was not ready to say that I don't know Mrs. Yes. She silently accepted Mrs. Yes, but she was not ready to accept the daughter of Mrs. Yes inside the house. And she refused by telling that no, or she doesn't have time to have a talk with her. And she was just standing there. The woman just had a glance at this girl as if she doesn't know this lady or this girl who is standing outside with the address. But this narrator, once she recognized the cardigan which was worn by this lady, she easily understood that yes, the address which my mother gave me and the place which I came is correct. It's not wrong. I'm not wrong. I just came to the right door. I'm here right in front of the correct address. Okay? So, and now what we see here is, well, you know my mother? I asked. Have you come back? Said the woman. I thought that no one had come back, only me. A door opened and closed in passage behind her. A musty smell emerged. I regret I cannot do anything for you. I have come here specially on the train. I wanted to talk to you for a moment. It's not convenient for me now, said the woman. I can't see you. Another time. She nodded and cautiously closed the door as though no one inside the house should be disturbed. I stood where I was on the step. The curtain in front of the bay window moved. Someone stared at me and would then have asked what I wanted. Oh, nothing, the woman would have said. It was nothing. So what happened here is, once the girl was about to leave the place, she happened to see what? The green knitted cardigan once it was belonged to her mother. So she came back and she asked one question. Do you know my mother? So what we see here is this woman didn't deny the knowledge of narrator's mother. Silently, she accepted the fact that she knows Mrs. Yes. And now, immediately she asked, what is that? You came back? That means, have you back after this World War? That indirectly shows that the woman thought that the narrator or Mrs. Yes and the full family might have got perished in World War II. And also we see that this time Jewish people were tortured and they were taken to different concentration camps, different Holocaust, and there in different concentration camps and Holocaust, this family might have got perished. So she was surprisingly asked, what is that she is asking? Have you come back? That means, are you back after this, all these tortures? Are you alive? And she says that, I think I am the only survivor in my family. I don't know much about the other members of my family, but I am here, back. And also she says that we have got a special train to travel, so I came here to have a talk with you. But what happened here? This woman was not interested. So after this girl recognized that the woman easily understood that she was the daughter of Mrs. Yes, the narrator says that, let me have a talk with you. Then what was the reply given by the woman? She says that no, I don't have time. I have some other business to do. She was not interested in talking with the girl. And also she disapproved, indirectly she disapproved the coming of this girl. And she says that I need to go somewhere. I don't have time. As if she doesn't want to disturb the other members in the family. You know that when someone comes in our family, all the other members wanted to know who that person is, why she came here, what was the purpose behind her coming. So definitely this woman, as she was rejecting and ignoring the girl who was standing outside, maybe she heard like someone is asking about the girl who is standing outside. But the lady was the woman inside the house was not even bothered to discuss about the girl or about the narrator who was standing outside with her family. And the narrator says that sometimes I'm pretty sure that someone from the house might have asked, who that girl is. Why did she came here? Why did she come here? Then the narrator herself says that the woman might have told that I don't know who that girl is. Let her go. There is nothing. Mistakenly she might have come here. So this may be the reply given by this woman to her family. So you can just imagine how this girl might have felt after a long period of time, after having experienced a lot of tortures for about 3 to 4 years. They were under the persecution of the Nazis army and group, and after once they were relieved by the allies or the British allies, she is back to her homeland for collecting her things back. But once she came to this address, this lady was acting as if she fails to recognize this girl. And also we see that the addressee was not ready to have a talk with the girl. She says that she have other things to do. Maybe another time will do. That means we can meet another time. Please leave this house right now. This is what she meant by telling another time. Okay. So what we see here is when the woman was not even bothered to let the girl in or let the narrator inside the house, or the woman was not ready to discuss about the particular girl, we see that the narrator feels so sad and she moves back to her place. Okay. I looked at the nameplate again. Darling, it is said in black letters on white enamel. And on the jamb, a bit higher, the number 46. As I walked slowly to the station, I thought about my mother who had given me the address years ago. It had been in the first half of the World War. I was home for a few days and it struck me immediately that something or other about the rooms had changed. I missed various things. My mother was surprised. I should have noticed so quickly. Then she told me about Mrs. Dolly. I had never heard of her, but apparently she was an old acquaintance of my mother, whom she hadn't seen for years. She had suddenly turned up and renewed the contact. Since then, she had come regularly. Now, you see that once this narrator was about to leave the house, she once again confirmed the address which was in her hand. She looked at the door, and here we see that you can see that it was written on a nameplate. What was written on a white enamel nameplate in black colors? It was written Darling. Darling is the name of the lady. Okay, Mrs. Darling. And in order to confirm the house number, she looked at the jamb. Jamb is the plate on the post on the side of a door. Okay, so that is jamb. So she looked at the jamb and it was written number 46. So that what was the address? The address was Darling, door number 46. Okay, she confirmed it and she made sure that yes, the address which my mother gave me years back was correct. I was not wrong. I came to the right address. But the lady was not ready to accept me as the daughter of Mrs. Yes. Okay, and now the reason why she behaved in a cold manner is said here. What was the reason? Here the reason is, see, before or during the time of the first half of the war, that means during the first half of the war, many of the Jewish people were still living at their home. They were afraid of hiding, or they were afraid of getting arrested. So before that, they were just planning about going for hiding. Just like in Anne Frank, you see that once this German attacked or Hitler attacked this Holland, and they were just trying to capture all the Jewish people, many of the Jewish peoples were still staying at their home with some given privileges. That is, these Jewish people were asked to wear a yellow star on the cloth, and they were given special timing for outing and all, and these people were not allowed to walk through the road after 8 o'clock in the evening. And also we see that they were not allowed to hire any motor vehicles or any other things likewise. So many restrictions were there. So this was the time when one day this narrator or this girl came her home and she could see that most of the things in the house was missing. Okay, and one day what happened? She happened to see this lady. What was the name of the lady? Mrs. Darling, just going out of her house with a bundle of things or with a full baggage. Okay, she remembers it very clearly. What is that? She started declaring. We know that this narrator was now going back to railway station. On the way, she started recollecting the things or the memories she had about her mother and the vague sight of Mrs. Darling coming to their house. What is that? It's a past story. Before going to hiding, the house of this narrator, they were rich Jewish people. You know that the Jewish people were rich. They had enough amenities in life. They enjoyed all opportunities in life. They have big houses and even gold and silver spoons and all. You know that cutleries, antique things. They were rich enough. So this girl is remembering on her back to railway station. She was just remembering, yes, I remember this particular lady coming to our house. And every visit, she used to come her house and she used to carry a bundle of things from their house. Okay, and here she says that this was the beginning of the World War, first half of the World War. And here we see that Mrs. Darling was the acquaintance. Acquaintance means, what is that? Having a friend like, not a good friend, but still then a stranger. After having a social contact with each other, we do have so many acquaintance. Okay, in our neighborhood, in our society, in our city, in our village, so many acquaintances from there. They are not our family members. Okay, so this Mrs. Darling was one of the acquaintance of the narrator's mother. So you see that they started renewing their contact after a long time. So this time when they renewed, this Darling may be a Christian. Okay, Christian or any other religion she belongs to, but she is not a Jewish lady. Okay, this Mrs. Darling. So Mrs. Darling used to visit her house every time. Often she used to visit, and once she goes from their house, she used to carry a huge bundle whenever she left the house. That means each visit of Mrs. Darling was a great loss for the family. She used to collect all the precious things of the narrator's house. And this was once questioned by narrator. Her mother said, "We don't have any hope that we can live here. Jewish people were tortured and they were targeted. And we being the Jewish family, at any point of time, we need to go for hiding or we will be arrested. If anything such happens in our life, see, we have got a lot of precious things in our house. I am just giving all these things to Mrs. Darling so that she can keep it in her house, safe and secure. And once we are back to our home, we can collect it from where? We can collect it from Mrs. Darling's family." So this is how Mrs. Darling used to carry a lot of things from whose house? From the narrator's house. And now the narrator was thinking about all these things as she was moving back to the railway station. Okay, she remembers, yes. Okay, then next paragraph. "Every time she leaves here, she takes something home with her," said my mother. "She took all the table silver in one go, and then the antique plates that hung there. She had trouble lugging those large vases, and I'm worried she got a crick in her back from the crockery." My mother shook her head pityingly. I would never have dared to ask her. She suggested it to me herself. She even insisted. She wanted to save all my nice things. "If we have to leave here, we shall lose everything," she says. "Have you agreed with her that we should keep everything?" I asked. "As if that's necessary," my mother cried. "It would simply be an insult to talk like that. And think about the risk she is running each time she goes out the house door with a full suitcase or bag." So what here is already we have discussed. We see that Mrs. Darling is the one who suggested this idea. Okay, Mrs. Darling was pretty sure that she is not going to get affected by the rule which was put by Hitler or the Nazis party, being not a Jewish family. So she will be safe and secure in her homeland, and moreover she is the neighbor and acquaintance of this narrator's family. So once this narrator asked her mother, "Why can't you stop her doing all these things?" And what was the reply given by the mother of this narrator? She said, "Actually, Mrs. Darling was doing a great favor for us by taking all the good things, nice things of our house to keep it in her house. Because if emergency comes, we need to leave our house. And what will happen? if the Nazis party or the Hitler's party will come and demolish our houses, everything will be spoiled and nothing will be remaining. It's better for her to take to a home and keep it safe for us, for our sake. And what are the things that she used to take? Even the table silvers, the antique plates, the large vases, flower vases and all. Even this narrator once thought that what if that darling gets a crick in her back? Crick in her back means a pain or muscle pain in her back as she is carrying a lot of crockeries or cookeries or the things. Okay, which is a bit heavy. You know that these Jewish people were having beautiful candlesticks and all, which they were using for Hanukkah festival, special festival for this Jewish people. So all such things were taken by Mrs. Darling after each visit. So once this narrator was girl, then she used to look and ask, what if she got a muscle pain on her back? Then her mother used to laugh simply. And many times, the children are irritated seeing all these things because that actually this is Mrs. Darling herself. She has suggested that I will keep all your pretty things in my home. Okay, and I'll give you back. So that was well agreed by the mother of the narrator also. So mother says that don't ask her anything. That will be like insulting. And after all, she is taking a great burden for us. So that's one of the reason why the mother of the narrator might have given the address by telling that if anyone is alive after this world war, you can go and have your things back. So that's why who came to this Mrs. Darling's house, the narrator came here. Okay, and here we see that the narrator on her way back to railway station just reminded, and she was just recollecting each visit which was made by Mrs. Darling to her house. And also she remembers that everything that was pretty good and nice, which seemed to be luxurious and also pretty costly things, were taken over by Mrs. Darling. And even now on this particular day, after years, this narrator could see that one of the sweater or a cardigan which belonged to her mother was worn by whom? Worn by Mrs. Darling. And with that sweater or with that cardigan, this narrator understood that the address which was given by my mother was not wrong, it's correct. Okay, she goes to the railway station and she just recollects all these things. Okay, and I think we can stop here. We can continue in the next class. I hope you understood to the point where we covered. Just read the textbook 2-3 times and try to comprehend. Okay, thank you all. Have a great day. God bless you.